Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. From this episode, we'll be reviewing Tensura Light Novel Volume 9. This volume primarily revolves around the detailed events of the Monster Federation's founding festival. We'll divide our discussion across 5 episodes. In the first one, we'll focus on Rimuru's interactions with numerous visiting guests. Let's get started. We previously mentioned that all preparations for the Monster Federation's founding festival have been completed. As time passed, dignitaries and nobility from various nations gradually arrived at the Monster Federation. Many merchants and adventurers who had heard about the festival also gathered within the city. It was truly a grand occasion. Everyone was eagerly anticipating the day when the Demon Lord would ascend the throne. With Mau Mau's assistance, the reception and accommodation were handled impeccably. After meeting with important guests like Dwarf King Gazel, King of Blumend, and the new King Yomu of the Kingdom of Falmouth, Rimuru finally managed to free up some time. Using teleportation magic, he visited the Kingdom of Ingracia, intending to invite his own students and Yuuki Kagurazaka to join the inaugural festivities. After exchanging pleasantries with Yuuki and reminiscing about recent events, Rimuru felt a familiar warmth returning to Ingracia. Seeing familiar faces eased his spirits. The conversation with Yuuki turned casual, and Rimuru extended an invitation to visit the Monster Federation. During their talk, Yuuki excused himself briefly and returned with a woman in an otherworldly suit. With blue eyes, neatly tied golden hair, and distinctly long pointed ears, she was unmistakably an elf. She was the deputy commander of the Free Guild Kigali. During their conversation, Rimuru learned of Kigali's recent achievements. She had extensively explored the western ruin, Soma, making her a top figure in relic exploration due to the amassed treasures. Now, she mentors B+ ranking explorers, emphasizing the thrill of diving into the ancient past over profit. Kigali's passion reminded Rimuru of an unexplored ruin found post-Clayman's castle raid, likely Clayman's magical equipment source. Though Rimuru considered an exploration, he hesitated, fearing potential artifact damage. The woman now seated before Rimuru was precisely an expert in this area. Hence, to uncover these lost civilizations and bring their tales back to the world, Rimuru entrusted Kigali with the task. He wanted her to assemble a specialized research team to explore alongside him. Being inherently interested in ancient relics, Kigali naturally accepted the commission. And with that, their meeting concluded. Rimuru, accompanied by Yuuki, moved on to their next destination, the Freedom Academy of Ingracia, renowned for its cultivation of skilled individuals. After exchanging greetings with the administration, Rimuru made a beeline for the classrooms. As he opened the door, Alice, full of zeal, darted straight into Rimuru's arms. Gale, Ryota, and Kenya soon followed, their complaints interspersed with joyous laughter, clustering around Rimuru. Lastly, Chloe emerged, rushing over to Rimuru with a heartwarming smile. Observing his students still thriving with happiness, Rimuru's spirits lifted even higher. He extended an invitation for them to visit the Monster Federation. At his words, the children buzzed with excitement, a storm of energy and chatter. They hurriedly returned to their dormitories to pack. A nearby teacher, taken aback by this sudden burst of enthusiasm from usually reserved students, heaved a silent sigh. After a moment's reflection, this new instructor, with a resolute look, addressed both Rimuru and Yuuki. He voiced his concerns. The children's abilities were growing rapidly, and he was nearing the point where he could no longer challenge them. To ensure their continued growth, they needed a more skilled mentor. Yet the issue was finding someone of A rank or higher adventurer caliber willing to invest time in these kids. Rimuru suggested that the children train in the Monster Federation. However, the others countered this by highlighting that since Rimuru's nation was predominantly inhabited by monsters, such a move might hinder the children's understanding of human societal norms, possibly affecting their future interactions. Moreover, it was essential for the children to deeply understand the spirit powers residing within them. For a while, the three struggled to find a satisfactory solution. They decided to enjoy their time for a few days before reconvening for a more in-depth discussion. Using a transportation gate, Rimuru brought the children back to the Monster Federation. After handing out free entry tickets and vouchers to the kids, he retired to his room, planning to rest thoroughly before the grand festivities. However, just then, Soei suddenly appeared beside him, softly delivering a report. The hero, Masayuki, and his party had arrived on the city's outskirts. Rimuru, with a hint of apprehension, wondered just who this person might be. Without delay, he went out to greet them. Upon reaching the main gate, he saw a large carriage carrying what seemed like elves who had been previously imprisoned. Beside it was another carriage, atop which a blonde-haired young man sat, emitting a subtle but discernible aura of heroism, known as hero haki. Though it had no effect on Rimuru, he speculated if this was some kind of intimidation technique, and wondered if this young man was indeed Masayuki. Although he didn't seem very powerful at first glance, Rimuru didn't let his guard down, pondering if Masayuki had hidden his true strength. With a calm demeanor, Rimuru turned his gaze towards him. Upon noticing Rimuru, the young man halted his carriage. His entourage immediately took on an aggressive stance, questioning if the demon lord had come out to challenge the hero. But Rimuru, wanting to portray himself as a friendly demon lord, held back his annoyance. He expressed gratitude towards Masayuki and his party for rescuing the captured elves and offered them hospitality in the city to partake in the national festival. However, one of Masayuki's muscular companions scoffed dismissively, belittling Rimuru, questioning his integrity and mocking the demon lord's aspirations of peaceful coexistence. Hearing this, the surrounding merchants looked puzzled, and Rimuru's patience began to wear thin. While he could confront them head-on, he was wary of tarnishing his reputation in front of foreign dignitaries. As Rimuru felt cornered, Yuuki timely stepped in, joining the conversation. Masayuki, seemingly relieved to see him, greeted Yuuki. However, his comrades remained confrontational, warning Yuuki not to underestimate their leader, Masayuki, despite Yuki's prominent status in the Free Guild. Masayuki, who had been silent, appeared troubled. Rimuru sensed that Masayuki himself didn't desire conflict. Spotting this, Yuuki tried to calm down the hero's aggressive allies. Regardless, they remained distrustful of Rimuru. Rimuru suggested a change in topic, offering a new idea. He mentioned an upcoming martial arts tournament at the next day's festival, proposing that if they competed and won, he would then accept their challenge. His intention was to assess their capabilities in the tournament prior to any face-to-face confrontation. Masayuki's men eagerly accepted, boasting about showing Rimuru their prowess. Masayuki, on the other hand, looked resigned but accepted the challenge. With that, they left. Both Yuuki and Rimuru sighed with relief and headed back to the conference room. That evening, in a lavishly decorated reception hall, dignitaries from various nations gathered. At Rimuru's command, a grand feast began. Nobles cheered as a spread of grilled meats, various stir-fried vegetables, fried chicken, tempura, and fruit cakes were laid out. Alluring elf maidens served a range of drinks, adding to the ambience. Elsewhere in the hall, Hakuru showcased his culinary skills, recreating handmade sushi techniques he learned from his grandfather, Araki Byakuya. Everyone, including Rimuru, was full of praise. The atmosphere was jubilant, and the hall buzzed with joy. But then, at that very moment, a soldier suddenly burst into the room shouting. Guards from various nations scrambled into the room. Rimuru was taken aback, wondering what had prompted such a commotion. He hadn't sensed any powerful demonic auras or perceived any issues with security. Why all the sudden panic? Then, soldiers from each nation relayed messages to their respective leaders. It turned out that the emperor of the Sorcerer's dynasty, Elmesia El Rusarian, had arrived at the Monster Federation and was approaching the hall on foot. The nobles of various nations were in disarray, with many sending messengers back to their homelands. Rimuru was puzzled, wondering the upheaval truly due to the late arrival of the Empress of Sarian? Seeing Rimuru's nonchalance, King Gazel, who had come to his side, let out a sigh and began explaining the gravity of the situation. As the name suggested, the Sorcerer's dynasty Sarian was a massive nation, commanding the allegiance of 13 royal families. Although its overall power couldn't compete directly with the entire Western Council of Nations, within its own boundaries, Sarian held absolute sway. In Sarian, Empress Elmesia wielded supreme power. Revered as a descendant of gods and self-proclaimed Sky Emperor, the veracity of these titles was debatable, but the resurgence of Sarian under Elmesia's rule was undeniable. In fact, this empress's age exceeded even the 2,000-year history of Sarian. Before such an emperor, even King Gazel couldn't lift his head, let alone the shorter-lived nobility who seldom got the chance to meet her. King Gazel spoke gravely. Taking his words to heart, Rimuru braced himself. Soon, the noisy hall fell silent as the self-proclaimed Sky Emperor, Elmesia Sarian, made her grand entrance. With skin as pale as snow, flowing silver hair, and piercing emerald eyes that seemed to see through everything, she was undeniably beautiful. The guards behind her radiated immense power, and even their formal attire appeared to be legendary magical gear. Witnessing this, Rimuru couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of the world. Elmesia gracefully expressed her satisfaction and gratitude for Rimuru's hospitality. Rimuru promptly responded. But then, the Lord of Wisdom residing within Rimuru relayed a warning. Elmesia had initiated some form of mental interference. It wasn't an attack, but rather the natural influence of her hero's haki, a power even greater than that of Gazel's. Potentially, she had the strength comparable to a demon lord. Rimuru remained vigilant, and, in a bid to convey his intent for friendly dialogue, quickly invited them to sit and enjoy some desserts. With a casual smile, Elmesia subtly moved closer to Rimuru, discreetly conveying her request for a more informal meeting in the coming days, hinting at pressing matters she wished to discuss. After Rimuru agreed, Elmesia nodded contentedly, returning to her entourage and joining the festivities. However, shortly after Empress Elmesia's arrival, there was another stir at the entrance of the hall. King Gazel looked serious as he regarded the newcomers. The new King Yomu also recognized the identity of the arrivals. Rimuru nodded to Cheyenne, signaling her as he rose from his seat to greet them. Just as the crowd was about to arrive, they turned out to be the ruling group of a massive power that had crowned Milim as their new monarch. As always, upon seeing her close friend, Milim beamed with joy, eagerly clamoring for delicious food. Rimuru reassured her that she would undoubtedly be satisfied. Soon after, Shuna, with a smile on her face, brought forth the dishes specially prepared for Milim, indicating that she and her companions should indulge. However, at this moment, Milim's deputy, Midri, declared that such food was blasphemous and not fit for Milim to consume. As we mentioned earlier, Milim usually only ate raw foods like raw meat or vegetable salads. This was a traditional belief upheld by Midri and his dragon-worshipping people, who savored the natural essence of raw ingredients. Milim, disliking this strict tradition, brought Midri along, intending to introduce him to the concept of cooked cuisine during this event.
What on earth is this? You've slightly cooked the meat, which is one thing, but what's with the inexplicable sauce added? It's pitiful.
Midri exclaimed, veins bulging from his forehead, as he stared down Rimuru. Shuna's smile faded, replaced by a silent and intense gaze at Midri. Sensing the rising tension, another attendant went pale, frequently bowing to apologize to Rimuru and Shuna. Yet Midri continued his tirade, dismissing the seasoned soup and creamy crepe, adamant about not tasting any of it. The commotion grew, drawing the attention of bystanders. Concerned for Rimuru, Milim began to apologize, suggesting they move to another room for further discussions. Other attendants also hurriedly voiced their apologies, and Rimuru considered calming the situation before it escalated further. Yet someone wasn't going to let it go. With a loud slap on the table and a mysterious smile, Shuna suddenly confronted Midri, who looked utterly taken aback.
Enough!
Shuna, her eyes wide and still smiling, sternly addressed Midri. Pushing a bowl of soup towards him, she continued.
This soup, blended with various seasonings, represents Rimuru-sama's ideal. Just like Milim-sama's reign encompassing multiple races, individual strength is formidable, but combined power is even greater, embodying the essence of harmony. Taste it.
Perhaps overpowered by Shuna's presence, Midri hesitantly took a sip, and his astonished expression spoke volumes of the unexpected delight he found. Seizing the moment, Shuna continued her metaphor, likening various dishes to different nations under Milim's rule. Each dish on its own was delicious, but together they created a sumptuous feast, just as nations prosper when they collaborate. This was the world Rimuru envisioned. Her face radiant with genuine emotion, Shuna's words resonated with those around. Midori, possibly reflecting on his stance, remained silent, staring at the spread before him. The surrounding onlookers too appeared deep in thought. Before long, attendees excitedly engaged in lively conversations, realizing Rimuru's grand ambitions. Midori finally recognized his misjudgment and started reconsidering his long-held beliefs. Despite the minor hiccup, the festival's eve concluded amidst a chorus of cheers. That's all for this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. In our next episode, we'll delve into the details of the festival's inaugural day. See you in the next one.